Chapter 5 374 Kylan arm per minute. Russell's screams were extremely terrifying, and in the middle of the night, suddenly this voice could scare people to death. However, in fact, it was not him who was shot, but the bearded corpse that he had erected. Although Debiatu is now deaf, blind and dizzy, he can't maintain his balance, but he has a gun in his hand. Except that he can't shoot arc bullets, it is still very lethal. Russell needed to use up the Beretta 92F's magazines. In order to make the effect more realistic, he used the bearded corpse to block the hole of the gun. There is no disrespect for corpses. Russell is a good young man with 5,000 years of traditional culture. Before erecting the bearded corpse, he discussed with the bearded body. The whiskers didn't say anything. Russell thought it might be because of his shy personality, so Quan should acquiesce. Bang. Bang. Ah. It's broken. My Kylan arm of 374 RPM. It's broken. Bang. Bang. What? My chicken. My chicken that can wrap around the thigh twice. Russell didn't care whether Debiatu could hear or not, but his intuition told him that Debiatu could sense it. So hiding behind the pillars can scream, how hard it is, how hard it is, how miserable it is. The big back is not a fuel-efficient lamp. After a few shots, he realized that he had been tricked by Russell, and he would never shoot again. The standard magazine of the Beretta 92F is 15 rounds, and the big back uses an extended magazine, a total of 20 rounds, but under the interference of Russell, he now only has 2 rounds available. The worst thing is that out of self-confidence, the big back has no spare magazines. The old-fashioned flintlock gun was modified by him and was specially used to pierce armor. It was powerful but time-consuming to reload the ammunition. The 2 bullets could not solve Russell, so he could only play hand-to-hand combat. Under the negative buff of flash bombs, it is very exciting to think about the close-up confrontation with the enemy. Therefore, for the last 2 bullets, he will not shoot without a complete grasp, and Russell will consume it if he does not come out. It is best to consume it until the end of the buff time. Russell hid behind the concrete pillar, knowing that the longer he dragged on, the more time he would get to breathe, and the time on the character card was limited, so he couldn't afford it. Russell gave Beard a wink, and the other party continued to be silent. Although he didn't speak, he had already conveyed the meaning. Russell understood, carefully holding the bearded corpse in front of him, and walked out from behind the concrete pillar. Bang! Debiatu seemed to have a feeling, and when he raised his hand, he fired a shot, centered on the chest of the bearded man. The 9mm pistol bullet has a first-class stopping effect, but the penetrating power is insufficient, and the bullet finally stopped in the bearded body. Russell is equipped with the character card of the subway policeman. He knows this well, and is not worried that the bullet will shoot through his beard and hit him. Debiatu reluctantly opened his eyes were white, and the tears couldn't stop flowing. He could vaguely see a gray blurry figure approaching him, but he didn't dare to shoot. Resisting the dizziness that hadn't dissipated, he silently calculated the distance between him and Russell, and after taking a deep breath, his heartbeat instantly exceeded 400 beats per minute. The world slowed down in his perception. Although the current state was extremely bad, he still threw the last bullet. He was confident that the shot would definitely hit. Bang! After a gunshot rang out, the 2 figures with human bodies fell to the ground at the same time, and the big back was relieved. He immediately exited the so-called bullet time state. Unlike father and son Cross, he acquired this ability through training and could not maintain it for too long, otherwise he would die of heart failure. Just when Debiatu felt that he was about to capsize in the gutter, a strong wind suddenly hit, his face was hit hard, the bridge of his nose collapsed, and he fell to the ground with his head up. Russell knocked Debiai head down with a straight punch, stepped forward, and then kicked Debiai head hard again. The nose is one of the most vulnerable parts of the human body. Suffering a heavy blow will instantly incapacitate the person due to severe pain. Russell made 2 consecutive strikes, directly knocking Debiatu into a daze, and then kicked Debiatu in his hand. This kick was a bit heavy, and Beretta 92F flew directly out of the fence, and a falling object came. Behind Russell, the bearded corpse pressed the goggled corpse. That's right, Russell walked out crouching with the two corpses. He couldn't see or listen to the bully. Debi's head screamed in agony, and the cry was full of anger, like a beast that was ready to fight back before dying. Russell didn't dare to approach, turned to pick up the assault rifle on the ground, and used it as a stick to swipe it on the side of the big back. Debiatu's face was bloody, and a few bloody teeth flew out. He fell to the ground, rolled forward and left, came to the concrete fence, stood up tremblingly, and pulled out his old-fashioned flintlock from the back waist. Gun. The flintlock pistol without projectiles was at best a fire stick. Russell threw a rifle at it and knocked the flintlock pistol into the air. Debiatu's strength is very strong, and Russell's strength is not small, and the two guns are released at the same time. The next second, Debi let out a low roar, opened his eyes laced with blood and tears, and rushed towards Russell. The pain suppressed the dizzy head, except that he still could not hear the sound. His eyesight had recovered a little, at least he could discern the position of Russell. Equipped with the character card of the subway policeman, Russell's fighting ability is soaring. The grappling fighting technique he learned in the police academy is not a star and a half compared with the military fighting techniques specially used for fighting by the Delta Force. Although his physical fitness is not refreshing, his fighting ability is adequate. It went up a step properly. Debi's head was still a little dizzy, and his reaction was a little slow. He was continuously avoided by Russell's nimble footsteps. He was beaten again painfully, and finally was kicked on the temple. Relying on the cement fence, he could barely maintain his balance. Debiatu knew that if he didn't do anything, today would really be over. He endured the pain of his heart being torn apart and entered the bullet time state for the third time. Bang bang bang. The adrenaline was secreted rapidly, the heartbeat accelerated wildly, and the vision of the big back gradually became clearer. Although it was still a little shaky, it was no longer a serious problem. Debiatu, who was racing against time, didn't say anything harsh. He stepped on the ground, rushed out like a whirlwind, raised the dust on the ground, raised his right fist high and slammed into Russell's temple. In the state of bullet time, the speed, strength, and neural reflexes of the big back head all reached an exaggerated level. Russell raised his arms to block with his sixth sense, and was thrown out by a punch. The blocking arm stabbed, and Russell curled up in mid-air, trying to protect the fragile vitals around him. His subconscious action saved him again, and he was kicked to the ground by a follow-up kick. It was very painful, and there were many contusions in the muscles and tissues, but no tendons and bones were broken. Looking at the kick that Debiatu kicked sideways, Russell did not retreat, but rushed forward, threw himself into Debiatu's arms, raised his elbow and hit his heart. Ding! The host breaks through the spiritual limit, wisdom +1, the current attribute is 10, 9 + 1. Russell didn't hear the system's prompt sound, he only knew that his reaction speed was faster, and his ability to predict attacks in advance was more accurate. His speed and strength were no match for Debiatu, but relying on his ability to predict, he avoided Debiatu's killer move one step ahead. The elbow hit Debiatu's heart, which caused him to withdraw from the bullet time state. Debiatu staggered back 2 steps, and his face was a little unbelievable in addition to the pain. You, don't you? Russell didn't care what Debiatu said. After he hit Debiatu with an elbow, the momentum of the shock had stopped. Because of the excessive force, the foot slipped and the body fell forward. Russell didn't stop to maintain his balance, and he launched a surprise attack following the action of falling down. His goal is the stereoreceptor between the big back and the legs. There is nothing to be ashamed of. This is not a competition, but a life-threatening attack. When people put their elbows at the testicles, if they say elbows, we are elbows. Russell hit him with an elbow, and he was immediately beaten by chickens and eggs. He was caught off guard and was beaten in the eyes by the despicable hooligan Trix. Seeing him kneeling on the ground in a twisted posture with his legs between his legs, he knew that it would be difficult for him to fuck in the future. The position of the chicken is the key lifeblood of the human body. The nerves are dense, and a light hit can cause severe pain to stand up, and a heavy blow will make you burp on the spot. Davy received this blow, and now his eyes are scattered, the corners of his mouth are drooling, and he makes an unconscious whimper. Russell didn't have any sympathy for him. He went around behind him, hooked his arms around his neck, and twisted it hard. With a click, he fell to the ground with a big back, and there was no movement other than the twitching of his hands and feet. Street Diary. If you don't want to code today, you can save it until tomorrow. Maybe you will be lucky tomorrow. If you get 404, you don't need to code.